One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. Butler Athletic Director Barry Collier is our guest today on One Question. And Barry, the basketball season is right around the corner. And as soon as we tip here, we get this really neat couple-month stretch. Well, it's neat for me, somebody watching games and observing the industry, maybe not for operations staffs around the nation, but we get this stretch where you have basketball going, football still in full swing. Of course, a myriad of other sporting events are happening at the same time. So a fun time coming up. But for you as an AD, what's the anticipation like for basketball season compared to when you were a head coach? And what differences are you focused on now than you were then, or what's the same?
Well, I think a major difference is the various aspects of putting on the event itself for everyone involved, the two teams and all the fans and staff and faculty and students that attend the games. There's a support role, I think, that's appropriate to be labeled and appropriate for our staff to work through. So in some ways it's similar. You've got some basic fundamental things that you've got to do and do well. There's a very much of a personable need from a customer service standpoint. But it's more it's labor intensive, but there aren't as many audibles that come into play because we're all kind of looking for the same thing, a good experience on game day. When you're coaching, you've got the other team is trying to win the game, and the competitive outcome is always in question.
When you initially returned to Butler and became the AD, compared to today, did you find yourself having to constructively stay at arm's length in terms of what happened X and O wise on the court, or has that been pretty easy from you from the get-go because you were a coach and you know that you don't want anybody meddling into your program? How has that worked out over the years?
Well, I think every situation is probably a little bit different. In mine, I'd come directly from coaching the previous 30 years into this spot, and so I enjoy the game a great deal. I watch the game probably more as a coach, but today maybe more as much or more so as a fan, given that I do stay away to a great extent. But I still enjoy watching practice. I've had good relationships with every one of our head coaches along the way, and they've asked me when they've asked me for an opinion, I've shared it with them. And I do think that part of any athletics director's job is to ask questions. If nothing else, you're helping your coaches to establish a philosophy and be able to express it. And so maybe there's a little bit of a mix there. I do tend to sit up and away from the court, but that's probably my love for Butler and wanting to cheer for our team more than worried about getting involved in the coaching aspect.
From an administrative standpoint, Barry, the rule changes we've seen over the last couple of years in men's basketball, in your view, are we headed in the right direction from how defense is played, how the game is called, what scoring looks like? Are we headed in the right direction, and what else maybe could be tweaked to further improve the product on the court?
I think we are headed in the right direction. I think the Rules Committee has made some good changes. I think the rubber hits the road when it has to be applied in the game, and it's not an easy game to officiate. Largely, the officials do a very, very good job. So I think it's moving in the right direction. I think the increased scoring that we've seen is a positive. I don't think much of the shot clock adjustment. I think it has more to do with fouls being called, coaches and players adjusting to the way the game is being officiated, which the officials are being instructed to effectively to call the game closer. And I think that's a step in the right direction from where we were. It's still going to have to work its way out. There'll be another year or two, I think, before we could fairly judge the impact, and so we need to be patient with taking in that information.
Is there a scenario moving forward where, and this has been tossed around, I guess, and probably gets tossed around every season at some point, is the financial framework ever going to be established, or could it ever be established, where the officials in college basketball, or any other NCAA sport for that matter, but mainly the revenue sports, are more of a full-time nature, and maybe the load on their plate from a weekly, monthly, season basis is more distributed?
Well, it's a good question, one that's been talked about for a long time. I think if it can happen, I think it's possible, but it would require a significant expense outlay for that to happen, because the structure needed to support it would be considerable. But the second thing is why it's difficult is the different levels of officiating. So right now the better basketball conferences pay a higher rate. They demand a higher service, and the very best officials generally are there. Those officials and some others work other leagues, but there's various levels of officiating now that probably would make this situation somewhat difficult or added difficulty to this idea. But I think all things considered, the officials have a very difficult job. They do a very good job. The ones that have the veterans, or rookies for that matter, that have the interpersonal communication skills and poise to handle these tough situations with very enthusiastic and somewhat rabid fans and coaches that are on the firing line every game. It makes those officials that can handle that with poise, understanding, extremely valuable, and those are the ones that I think that last and contribute to the game so much. And beyond that, I think most of them communicate well with the student athletes. They're not trying to, make a point or let an ego get involved. So those are very positive things, and I think that that's a big challenge. But I also think that they do, by and large, they do a really good job right now. And it's also a situation where like at Butler, we've got 9,000 fans that feel the call should go a particular way no matter what happened, and would be in favor of that going in Butler's way every time. So, that's a difficult working situation to be under as an official. I think that they do a good job overall across the country.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.